Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. This is your first time listening to the podcast. Thank you. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. Trey, man, what's going on? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. You know what I'm saying? It's up close to the draft this Thursday. We got NBA free agency coming along. So hey, we got some big things coming along the way.
Yes, sir. We're gonna talk about the draft in a minute. We're gonna talk about a couple other things, and I guess leading into free agency as well. So stay tuned for that. But still on the emotional high, Trey. The Panthers won last night, Game 7. I know you into the ratings, by the way. I saw before we got into the pod. I think it was over 7.5 million watched Game 7. That's the highest for hockey since 2019. So that was a big
Not
one.
surprised.
Yeah, but then I was thinking that 2019 was also the last time there was a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup. So I guess that number's like a little jaded too, because Game 7 people kind of tune in. But I've been trying to get you on the hockey train. My team actually won, so it's been crazy down here for sure. Did you watch any of the game? Did you see any of the highlights? Like, I was obviously on the edge of my seat. I couldn't even breathe the whole last third period because the game was right down to the wire. But like, I've been telling you, the hockey playoffs is the best. But then we had the actual narrative, and you the one that care about narratives. We had the best player in the world playing against a team that has never won the championship before. So like, this is basically a better narrative than what we could even get for the finals.
And y'all deserve to lose. And I'm saying this is a Florida native. If y'all let a team come back from down 3-0, y'all deserve to lose.
No, that's true. That's true. That's the thing. Like, they did some things to switch up in Game 7. Like, our coach, our goalie got the day off. He usually like to practice. Like, they tried some different things, and they got back to the roots. But yeah, it would have been historically bad. But you know what? It's funny. On the other end, if McDavid would have won coming back from 0-3, then it's kind of like he catapults himself into like the Sidney Crosby, like them type of dude categories. Like, so he also failed to win it. But I wanted to ask you, because I know about the Conn Smythe Trophy a little bit, and for people that are upset about it, the Conn Smythe Trophy is the award for the entire playoffs, not just like, it's not the finals MVP like it is for basketball. McDavid did win it, being the best player in the playoffs, and he did break one of Wayne Gretzky's records for most points in a playoff run. So obviously Gretzky is like the greatest of all time. So breaking any of his records pretty much cements it. But you being a non-hockey fan, just kind of like parachuting in, do you feel a type of way about that? Is it just like uncomfortable, like because his team didn't actually win it for him to like win that overall award? Okay.
No, so like you said, I'm not a hockey fan, but I have heard some of the discourse, and I don't have an issue with it because, again, like you so prudently said, it is for the best player in the playoffs, not the finals, the playoffs.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best player loses. Like, let's just translate it to something that you and I both watch, basketball. I think you and I can admit that Luka Doncic was the best player in these finals.
Oh, in the finals? I don't think he was the best player in the finals. I would say he's the best player in the playoffs.
Oh, so you wouldn't even say he's the best player in the finals. I think he's the best player in the finals. But neither here or there. We've seen the best players lose sometimes, but no, I think he's the best player in the finals, and we need to discuss this.
No, I mean, listen, I don't think I guess the way I look at it is, I think I'm a little jaded. One, I think I'm a little old-fashioned. I believe the winner of the finals, that should be the award. And I also think that for hockey, because it's not like the Panthers didn't have any candidates. Our goalies had a great like entire playoff run, but he had a couple bad games in Game 4 and Game 5 in the series. So you can be like, okay, maybe he had a chance to win the award, but then those two bad games. But I got to be fair too. If you go and win the award for the playoffs, Connor McDavid had a great run, but he didn't score any points in Game 6 or Game 7. So when your team needed you the most, you didn't score any points. So like, although you had how much do those points really matter all the way up to this point, or then when it really mattered, you didn't get it. And the same thing for Luka. He had a great playoff run all to this point, but when your team really needed you, you fouled out in Game 3, right? And then Game 4, you played pretty well, and then Game 5, you played okay, but you never really had any of those big moments like you did in the previous series. So like, I think the way I view it is, I think I look at it, the further along you go in the playoffs, it's like almost more detrimental if you don't perform, and it's like a bigger deal if you do perform. You get what I'm saying? Like the hierarchy kind of changes for me.
No, I definitely get it. I'm just I'm more of a guess, just a guy where I'm like, listen, I'm not going to punish you for making it that far. I, I guess it is because in a big sense, I'm a LeBron fan. I don't believe that should get punishment for making it to the finals, even if you're the underdog. Like we should just take it at face value, and that's how I feel about this performance. Like you shouldn't get punished because you didn't have the best finals if other players and other teams didn't even make it to that stage.
That's fair. But here's the difference. And I can equate the McDavid thing to the LeBron situation. There's only one reason that I'm okay with McDavid winning it, and it's because he broke a record, and he broke a record that was Wayne Gretzky's record, which pretty much most of Wayne Gretzky's records are almost unbreakable in hockey. He has the biggest gap of any records, even more than like Babe Ruth in baseball or Jordan in basketball. Like breaking a Gretzky record that's been standing for almost 30 years. I'm okay with you winning that award, if that's what that means. Like let's say if LeBron in 2015, if he was the first, I don't know if he was, but if let's say he was the first player ever in finals history to like average a triple double and they lost, because you like broke a record or something historic, that's the only time that I'm okay for you winning in a losing effort. But it can't just be you were the best player in a losing team. You know what I mean? Like the bar is bigger for you if your team loses. You got to be even more extraordinary if your team loses to get the award.
Now I can't agree with that. Like I feel like it has to be something pretty extraordinary. It can't just be, oh, I was the best player on the court or on the hockey rink.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm LeBron James or I'm Connor Davis, so I'm always the best player. Like that's nothing new. That's
That's
not
true.
good enough. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. I mean, you're always the best player, but you got to play the best. And I guess the lasting memory for like hockey fans and stuff, and for me who watched the entire series, I mean, he had a chance right point. You probably saw the clip point blank right at the net, and he didn't get it in. Right, like that's a moment, right? That like how LeBron gets the block on Iggy. Like we think about these moments. That was his moment, and when I think about that moment, I think of him not coming through. So I guess that's one of those things. But maybe as time goes on, we feel differently. But he'll probably win a Stanley Cup in the future, and then this will just like add to his legacy anyway. So, but yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on that because that was a big discourse, and honestly, it was something I felt 50-50 on. Like you could kind of convince me either way, but at the end of the day, he didn't get to win it. We won, and Canada can stop talking because all they want is a championship, and they haven't won one in 30 years. So I'm glad for our team to actually get it. But let's talk about some basketball, get it out the way real quick before we get to the draft. JJ Redick, 4-year deal with the Lakers. It's kind of been a clown show to get to JJ Redick being hired because he was the rumored candidate, then with the Dan Hurley situation for about 10 days, and then now back to JJ Redick. I mean, I think we could both agree the Lakers don't look great in this situation, but we're here now. So what do you realistically expect JJ Redick to do that Darvin Ham couldn't do is my real question. Because you and I are kind of opposed. I thought Darvin Ham did an okay job and deserved to keep his job because I didn't think it's his fault that he didn't have a good enough roster. So I feel like JJ Redick's gonna get a better roster, and you know what I mean. So it's probably gonna be at a better advantage. But what does he have to do differently than Darvin Ham?
The one thing, and it's going to take LeBron and Anthony Davis buy-in. But one thing I've noticed, and it's come out in reports, Darvin Ham, like his team just didn't really run many set plays. It was just a lot of, free motion basketball. And the free motion is when it just got stuck in LeBron's hand or AD hands and they dribbled the ball for 14 seconds and then they either threw a heat missile to somebody or they just chucked up a shot. So I think that that's one thing that JJ Redick can get him actually involved in some sets. I think that's something that we can see a lot. Also, another thing, it's really in the minutia, but Darvingham just wasn't really good at taking timeouts in the appropriate times. So I would just say kind of clock management, timeout, some of that kind of miscellaneous stuff. I think that JJ Redick could be better at. It's going to take him some time to get used to it, but I think once he finally gets the hang of it, I do think he could be better at that sort of thing than Darvingham was because again, the bar was pretty low.
I just don't think Darvin Ham was that bad with the time management stuff. And I think a lot of coaches were like that. I just think he gets a bad rap. Like, I'm not a Lakers fan or anything, but the fact that he wasn't running enough plays, most teams in the NBA just run concepts. They don't run a lot of plays anyway. What stinks when you're not running a lot of plays, or if you do, you don't, when you don't have the players. Like, that's the only thing. So, like, the Lakers got to make, you and I can agree, the Lakers got to make a move, right? Like, they got to get a third star for this to
Oh,
even
without a
make
doubt.
this.
Like if they
Okay.
don't make a move, I think LeBron's coming back, but if they don't make a move, I think then we get into the real possibility that LeBron maybe looks elsewhere.
I just feel like the options are small there. I mean, like he's not going to Philly. Like you know what I mean? Like these teams are like he's not going across the country. where's he gonna really go realistically? Like I don't know, man. I just don't really see a situation where he's going anywhere. Like regardless of what they do. But hopefully JJ Redick's not back on doing his podcast in 2 years, because that's what this really heads to if they don't get a star. So, but speaking of stars, not stars, let's talk about the draft. The draft that we didn't really want to talk about too much, but I figure we bring it up. I got some players and some things that I could really get into and dig deep about this, but nobody really cares because there's no big time players anybody cares about. But Trey, I think I'm most excited for with this draft is to see if we actually get some draft day trades for some superstars, or maybe even one, and some jockeying back and forth. So let me ask you this: whether this happens on draft day or not, who do you think is most likely to be on a new team next year? Paul George, Jimmy Butler, or Donovan Mitchell? Now, I'm
I think
most likely.
Paul George, just because
Mhm.
he's having contract disputes and they seem to be a little bit deeper than Donovan Mitchell's case, where he's not really having a contract dispute. It's just whether or not he wants to sign a contract with Cleveland. And Cleveland did make it to the second round this year, so I think he might be inclined to stay. And I don't think the Knicks, I think that they see the expectations this year and even last year, so I don't think they're as inclined to go actually go and get Donovan Mitchell as they might have been in the past. And with Jimmy Butler's case, I'm just not so sure that he has the suitors out there. I mean, he's going to be 35 and he wants a 3-year max deal, and he's shown to be kind of injury prone at this stage in his career. I'm not sure he has the suitors, but Paul George, he's disgruntled and he has suitors out there. So I would say he's probably the most likely to be on the move.
That's tough. I think I actually think it's Donovan Mitchell, and the reason I do is because every step of the way he hasn't really ever shown that he wants to stay in Cleveland. Now that this could change by the time I drop this podcast and he can resign, right? But he's had multiple opportunities to commit to this franchise and he just won't. And then I don't think the piece with him and Darius Garland, you know, playing together, I don't think that really works in terms of winning long term. I think those guys really like each other, but I don't think that really works on the court. And the problem with the Donovan Mitchell thing is, unlike Jimmy Butler and Paul George, Donovan Mitchell never wanted to be in Cleveland. Like we got to remember
No,
that. Like it's not. This isn't something he chose. Remember, he got the same way you and I got blindsided when we saw Donovan Mitchell got traded to Cleveland. Because remember, Cleveland was not one of the teams that was like on the radar being talked about. It was the Heat, the Knicks, a couple other squads. It was not Cleveland. And he even said it in the interview with Windhorst. He was like, "Hey, I was surprised by Cleveland too." He's like, "But then I thought about it, thought about playing with Darius Garland. And I was like, hey, I like that situation." When a player says that, and this wasn't on their radar, that's always something you got to keep in mind with, especially if they've never committed. So I'm gonna go with Donovan Mitchell there. But to be honest with you, if we're going with all three names, I would say it's more likely that all three guys stay at their respective places than all three guys, be gone. You know what I mean? If I had to choose one. So I mean that amount of movement would still be surprising to me. But do you think there's a chance any of those guys get moved if it is on a draft night, or is it something that we just may see some like, complimentary players per se?
um, I don't think they get moved on draft night. I think because of how weak this draft is perceived to be, I just don't think that these are the kind of moves that we're going to see this Thursday. I think if anything, this will happen once free agency kind of opens up after July 1st.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so I'm looking at these players for the draft, and I got a couple guys I think that's some sleepers, but I want to toss it to you first because I know we haven't talked about it too much. Is there anybody in this draft that you think is going to be at least even if they're not a star, really good player, somebody you can say, hey, pay attention to this guy in the next couple years. He's going to be a good player in the league, no matter where he goes. Because obviously the fit kind of matters. But is there anybody that sticks out to you in a year where nobody actually sticks out? Is there anybody that you could you want to plant your flag with now?
It's two guys that kind of stick out. It's Montez Buzelis, and that's just because he's a tall, probably about 6'10" wing player who has, I would say at least good, maybe I won't say great, but good athleticism. Can handle the ball pretty well for his size. He has an okay shot. It's something that he can work on. I think is what a lot of scouts are pointing to as being his weakness. But the form is there, so it seems like he probably can improve it. He's supposedly had good work ethic, and he played in the NBA for the NBA, I mean NBA G League at night. So that was the NBA G League team. And he had a good showing out there. So he was playing against professional players. So I always like that when somebody's able to play up in competition and still perform well.
Hmm.
And then the second player would be Reed Shepherd, and that's Kentucky's point guard. And the reason I say Reed Shepherd is just because he's just a great shooter. And I think in today's game, more than ever, that is the ultimate component any player wants, being able to shoot the basketball. And if you can do that, you could pretty much work in any team. I'm not saying he's going to be a great player, that he's going to be a future All-Star or MVP candidate. I'm not saying anything like that, but I'm saying that I do think he could be a good role player to a good starter for a championship team.
I like the Reed Shepherd one, but Zealous, I'm not really sure because like I've seen some clips and you see some flashes, but he's never really fully consistent. And I think he got like hurt for a little second there. So there's just like a lot I don't really know about him, like a lot of these guys. So, but I definitely do like a lot of Reed Shepherd. Are you higher on Reed Shepherd than Dillingham?
Yes, if let's say I'm going to use an example. Let's say I'm a team that is, I guess, let's on a fringe is like possibly a good team. Like let's say Indiana or New York. I would rather have a Reed Shepherd because I think he's more of a sure product. But if I'm a team that's just playing out bad, like the Spurs, and we just need to, hit home runs and possibly draft the best players, then yeah, I think Rob Dillingham has a higher ceiling. So I think I might test the waters and draft Rob Dillingham.
See, you know what's crazy? If I was the Spurs, I would probably just go all in and get Bazelis and just go with the big point forward. You know what I mean? And just have like a big lineup at the back end at center and at the guard. I mean, that's what I would do for the Spurs. But a player that is projected to maybe go to the Spurs because the Spurs have two picks at 4 and 8, and I love me some Devin Carter, Trey. Devin Carter's the one. He is the one. If we may look back on this draft in a couple years, and he may be, if not the best, one of the best players in this draft. Again, not saying he's going to be a superstar, but he's got absolute things that can translate right away. He's only about 6'2", but he's got a 6'8" wingspan. Think Drew Holiday, defensive stopper. He's going to come in, and there's not a lot of defensive stoppers if you think about it, Trey, in the league. Like that's why we celebrate Drew Holiday so much. There's not a lot of guys that can really get up into the other guards and get over ball screens consistently. And we saw, even if you have the best creators in the league, i.e. Luka Doncic, i.e. Kyrie Irving, if you have a guard or a couple of guards even that can really make them work and get in front of the ball consistently, they can cause problems and force the other guys in the team to have to create when that's not their job. And I think Devin Carter in a draft that lacks a superstar offensive talent, a guy that's going to get you 20, 25 points, I think any team, good or bad, trade, could use a guy like him that could, come out here and guard. Obviously, I think he was averaging 8 rebounds a game as a guard, Trey, at 6'2". Like, come on, I mean, defensively, he's going to be good. I think they said he's a pretty good 3-point shooter. He's got to work on that. He can finish around the rim, but just what he could do defensively, I'm a big fan of. And then I'm going to be a little bit of a homer, and only because I didn't watch a bunch of college basketball this year, but obviously I watched the Hurricanes a good amount. I like as a sleeper, late first round, early second, Keyshawn George. Now, I know you probably don't know much about him, but he's like a 6'7", kind of point forward ish. With the Hurricanes, he was a guy that kind of like started sometimes came off the bench, but he has a nice fluid game. He can shoot the ball. He can shoot almost between 35 and 40% from three. He's not super athletic. That's really the only thing against it for a guy that size. But with his wingspan, he can really shoot it. He can handle the ball. And in the league where you kind of got to be switching everything and playing decent defense and things like that, I'm not usually a huge guy on like the traits or in everything, but because of his size, I think he can play the shooting guard or small forward, and I think he can work for a lot of teams. So that's the guy that I'm paying attention to, and I think if he goes to the right fit, I would like him on that squad. I don't know if you got to watch any of those guys, but those are two guys I'm looking forward to watching as well.
So let me ask you a question. In this draft, where does Bronny go?
If we've been
He's the
well,
most
listen,
intriguing player in the draft.
he's not the he's not the most intriguing player in the draft. Okay, he's going to the Lakers. Let's just get this out the way. We can might as well stamp this. He's going to the Lakers. Everybody has seen all the talk about Bronny James, but if we being real, he has the leverage to do this type of stuff and only do a couple of workouts here and there. But he doesn't really have any outstanding traits. He's only about 6'1", 6'2". He's pretty athletic. Doesn't really have a great jump shot, but it's good. It's a good looking jump shot. So he's got things you can build upon. But to be honest with you, he's really a guy that he should have went late in the second round, possibly even undrafted. But we know Lakers are what, at 55? Of course they're going to take him, because why wouldn't you? Most second round picks are kind of a flyer anyway. So why would you not take Bronny and, make LeBron happy and see if you can develop a type of guy? And the Lakers have developed a couple second round undrafted guys, Caruso, Austin Reeves. So they have at least a decent history of providing, some type of program where they get these guys better. So Bronny's got to go there. I mean, you lay me out the scenario that he doesn't go to the Lakers, because I mean, I think it's at this point like 80% that he's going to the Lakers. I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if some other team took the chance and signed him, and or excuse me, drafted him. And you definitely know it's not going to be a team that doesn't have the cap space, or isn't even looking at LeBron. It's not going to be like some random Toronto Raptors going to draft, Bronny or something like that. So you lay me out the scenario if you do think it's even a possibility otherwise.
So the only possibility I can see is just the Phoenix Suns, but that scenario is just because, again, as you mentioned, Bronny, he has all the leverage. He's not working out for many teams. I think it's only been reported that he's worked out for like two or three teams, and one of those teams is the Phoenix Suns. So like that leads me to believe that there's something there, like there's something that his camp is intrigued by, with the Phoenix Suns. And I don't know if they're looking at it from like his angle of, well, your dad could come out here and y'all possibly could compete. I don't know if they're looking at it in that scenario or that light, or if they feel like, it would be a good place for Brian to actually grow and develop into being a really good functional NBA player. That I can't answer. But since he has, done workouts with them, it kind of does lead me to believe that there's at least a hint of a possibility there. Again, I think it's like 98% certain that he's going to be drafted by the Lakers.
Is that high? I'll also
Yeah,
be
is that
nice,
high?
but yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying it's at least 2%, something else happens. And listen, if something else happens, I mean, that might be the highlight of the draft. So, listen, I'm kind of rooting for it.
I'm trying to think what the scenario would be for Phoenix. I mean, you can learn from some great players, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant is closer to LA, but I don't really know, because if I'm being real and really like just being honest, not trying to be a homer, but if you really wanted Bronny to go to a place that's going to be best for his career, like I'm saying, if obviously he doesn't have the choice, he has to be drafted. But let's just say like a team that we know is going to develop guys, wouldn't the Heat be on your short list? Like if forget like LeBron coming to play for the Heat. I'm just talking about just if you wanted if Bronny wants to succeed. Why wouldn't you want to go to a place like the Heat that develops guys and has played a bunch of undrafted guys, second round picks if they played well, and everybody that's gone there has pretty much gone better. Like, you know what I mean? Like what I just don't think, why not work out for one of those teams?
So I can see that scenario that you point out, and I think it's a good one. And I do think he probably should have worked out for those teams. But also, I think the issue is that if he was go to Phoenix where they have a new, owner, I think some assurances could be made to, LeBron or Rich Paul, their camp in general that hey, Bronny will see some legit play time in the NBA. He will be able to actually, get his feet wet and kind of develop as a player. Whereas with the Heat, he would develop, but I think he would be in the G League and he might be there for a year, even 2 years. And I just don't think for whatever reason, that's what the LeBron or Bronny James camp, that's not what they want.
Well, I can assure you one thing. If for some reason he did go to the Heat, the situation that you just laid out, where Rich Paul and LeBron are dictating what
Oh
is
yeah.
kind of going on, we know damn well that ain't happening with Pat Riley. First of all, that wasn't gonna happen with Pat Riley and Spo anyway. But Pat Riley is still upset LeBron left to this day. So it's definitely not happening. So you're actually probably right. It might be the last team, if you want to control what's going on, that's probably the last team you want to do that with. Like it's probably better basketball wise, but if you're trying to get some control, that's probably the last team. Yeah, you want to do something like that with. So yeah, that's a good point. But before we get out of here, Trey, I just the Magic came off a good year. I got to hear who you'd want the Magic to take. Now, I've heard different, I've seen different mock drafts. I know you've seen some. They need some shooting. We all know that. We saw Game 7. Jared McCain is one of the guys that comes up. Kolick. I don't know if, I mean, he came up with the Heat, but I don't know if that's the guy you're interested in. Just based on where the draft could kind of fall. Like, what's your? ideal scenario, what the Magic can get. Maybe even if you don't want to name the player, just maybe like positionally what they need. Like, what do you? What? How does the Magic win the draft to you?
So there have been some reports, and this is like maybe a week or two ago, that Rob Dillingham might be sliding in the draft. And there were some reports that the
Mm,
Lakers might take him at 17. We, the Magic, we drafted 18. So in a perfect world, Rob Dillingham could slide all the way to us. That is like the perfect choice for us because he is a high floor guard we need some scoring. Like we have the defense, we have Jonathan Isaac, we have Paulo, who's still a good defender. He could defend well down low.
Suggs,
We have
and you got
Franz.
Suggs, another good guard defensively too.
Correct, correct. Thank you, Suggs. But man, do we need some scoring, and Rob Dillingham could give that to us. So I think that would be like the main one I would choose. And then the other one, me and the King, we kind of talked about it. If Zach Edey was the kind of fall, I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
mad because we need like a real center. And supposedly he's looked a little bit more athletic than what he's led on in his college career when he got into these private workouts. So I wouldn't mind taking a flyer as Zach Edey because I mean, like you just can't teach 7'2", 300 pounds. Like there's just nothing that you can teach like that. And this is a draft again where it doesn't look like it's going to be the greatest draft in the world. It looks like it's going to be one of the weaker drafts in the last 10 years. So I don't mind taking a flyer in the draft at all.
Let me tell you something. It's not often that we've been doing this podcast that I can say the Heat and the Magic are on similar playing fields. But in terms of draft needs, I feel the exact same way. It's probably the same two needs for the Heat as the Magic. You need some shooting, particularly at the guard spot, and then you could definitely use some size. And Zach Edey's been in the back of my mind for the Heat because I live in a scenario, Trey, that I actually think there's a world that Bam could play the four and should be playing the four. And if you can get a guy like Zach Edey with that size, that's willing to play a role and just be big. Now I know he's going to get attacked on the pick and roll, and like there's things you're going to have to deal with that. But being able to have that positional versatility with a Jimmy Butler, if he if he stays, and Bam Adebayo, I would love if Zach Edey would fall to us because obviously you can't get like Klingon, but if that type of guy falls to us, man, I feel the same way you do, where you feel like he can help the Magic. I definitely feel like he can help the Heat. So although this draft isn't super exciting, we at least got a couple things to look forward to for our team's picks. We can say that, like we can at least talk our way into some of these picks, and the Magic got their second round pick as well too, right?
Yeah, they do. And I also wanted to mention at least our teams are not picking like number one because like I really feel for the Atlanta Hawks because I don't know what you do in this draft.
The worst part about it is they probably should go with like Sar or one of those guys, but they already have
But
invested
supposedly he
so
doesn't
much
want to
in
be there.
picks. Oh, supposedly he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, because they were possibly trying to make him play center. He doesn't want to do that.
Oh, it seems pretty entitled at this point, but okay, yeah, I guess guess you decide
I
what you
mean,
want.
listen, you need to advocate for yourself because listen, at the end of the day, if you get to the wrong fit, everybody's gonna blame you. So like,
That's fair.
gotta do a little bit of advocating.
No, that's fair. That's a fair point. By the way, I just wouldn't want to be playing for the Hawks just to not play for the Hawks. If I'm being fair, but I don't care what position. I just probably wouldn't want to be playing for the Hawks. But yeah, if I was him, I'd probably try to go to the Wizards or something like that. But man, if I'm the Rockets, a team that's like pretty good, I need to get a role playing guy. Like if I can get a Reed Shepherd, you know what I'm saying? I mean, honestly, even if they can get Sar, I would just go with the big lineup with Sengun and Sar and Jabari Smith. Like I would have a big front line if I'm being real, and just kind of call it a day. Especially if Sar can do what they're saying he can do and actually stretch the floor with Sengun with his passing. That's something you know what I mean. Like that's I don't know how you turn away from
I
that.
kind of like that. No, I honestly kind of like that in the sense that there's something to just trying something different. That's just been a little bit different.
Well, listen,
Like
Minnesota
when you're a
did.
little different, you're hard to guard.
Well, listen, we've seen two teams try to go different. The Cavs, they did it with Jared Allen and Mobley. And honestly, I think it's not a great fit now, but if you would have said a couple years ago, we would have thought, let's be honest, we thought Mobley would have developed a little bit more offensively, right? So
Yeah,
in theory, it looked good. But look what Minnesota this year. I know we've talked a lot about Cat and Rudy Gobert, but they got to the Western Conference Finals.
that's a
And this
great one to bring up. That's a great one.
mind you, this is the first year of this crew that was actually healthy. The first year that they played together, they Cat got hurt. So then this is the year they actually got healthy, and they showed you like, hey, if we have a dynamic guard, obviously getting an Anthony Edwards is the hard part, but you'd have to get somebody else. But like, let's say Jalen Green develops into not Anthony Edwards, but he keeps like how he did the end of the year, becoming a 20-point scorer. You got an athletic guard, and you're already small in the backcourt. Fred VanVleet. Now you got Dylan Brooks. He can guard a little bit too, and then you got a big front line. If I'm them, I'm sitting at 3, and I'm like, hey, it's between a small Reed Shepherd that can shoot or a Sar. Reed Shepherd might be the better player today, but I mean, I gotta at least take the chance on Sar. You know what I mean? At that point, just to kind of see what goes on, especially in a league where you're really only going to have 2 max players anyway. You know, we'll see what they do with Jamari Smith, but you at least got some options. So I think the
And you
Rockets,
got trade assets. Like
and you
let's
got trade
say Sar
assets.
takes off, and now you're like, oh, we don't need Jabari, but he's your good trade asset. Or
That's a
Jalen
great.
Green, or Sengun.
That's a great point. And to like your point, this is a tough year to be the number 1 pick. It's honestly kind of good. I think the Spurs in a great spot. You know, have 4 and 8, right? Like so at 4, you're like, hey, I can just grab the best guy that fell to me, and then at 8, there's going to be some guy at 8 that was probably supposed to be the top 3 and maybe fell because of fit. And so you're kind of like you said, the Spurs basically got a bunch of options. This is a great draft to not have the number 1 pick, you know. So, but we'll see with Atlanta. We could be saying all this, and they could draft the guy that's number 1, and they could be a big hit, but they don't even know what they're going to do in terms of their 2 guards. So I think the uncertainty with Atlanta, along with having a number 1 pick and not a great draft, makes it really, really tough. So all in all, I
Oh,
think the draft's a little intriguing. But go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, Atlanta's got their work cut out, but I just want to leave in this. Spurs, please try somebody good. Like, don't waste Wemby's first 5 to 6 years. Like we've seen that with 2 new players. Please don't do that.
Are you saying that they should just get a point guard? Because I think we could just start there. You know how
If
we.
if Reed Shepard falls to them and they don't pick him, I might not watch another game for them, like for the rest of the year.
First of all, I might not do that in general, but I'm giving him a chance because of Wemby. I'm giving him a chance because of Wemby. So, but at least we got some stuff to look forward to in the draft. But before we get out of here, Trey, I wanted to at least mention. I know we don't talk about this enough. We talked about a little hockey at the beginning, but we don't talk about baseball at all. Before the last time we recorded, Willie Mays did pass away. I just wanted to mention how big of a deal Willie Mays was for baseball. He's considered, if not the one, maybe the second or third greatest baseball player to ever live. He was big. I know everybody knows Jackie Robinson in terms of breaking the color barrier in 1947, but Willie Mays is a guy that transcended time in terms of, combining what he did in the Negro League to come to the major leagues and then dominate that as well. And he's a living legend. You guys can Google him, look it up. 24-time All-Star. I mean, it's just incredible. He's basically considered, like I said, the greatest all-around player of all time. If anybody who hasn't even watched baseball, you've probably seen the clip of him making the over-the-basket catch over his head in the World Series. So just got to say RIP to Willie Mays. I know, RIP to Jerry West as well, too. So we've lost some legends in the past couple of weeks. Bill Walton. So we've got a chance to talk about a couple of them. We never talked about baseball here, but like it had to be said.
Oh
So yeah,
yeah, no, most definitely. Yeah, we'd be remiss not to say it. Like again, like you said, he was a living legend. One of the greatest, if not the greatest player of all time. And then what he was able to do on the social aspect of being a black player playing in the major leagues at a time where, let's be honest, America really didn't like black players, and to be able
yeah.
to see him have the success that he did, I mean, it was just amazing. So like, R.I.P. to him for real.
Yeah, Willie Mays is an absolute legend. And last week they actually had the Rickwood Field in Birmingham. We got to ask JP about that too, because they had the game over there as well. So they actually already planned that before Willie Mays even passed away. So that ended up being like an honoree as well. So, and for anybody else, I checked it out on a plane last year. There's a Willie Mays documentary, Trey, on HBO Max. If you haven't checked it out, it's a really good one. This would be a good time to check it out, because I'm pretty sure you and I are probably done watching Clipped. So
Oh,
you
I'm
can check,
done.
you can check out. I've only watched episode 1, so I'm
That's
gonna
all I
try
did.
to.
And I'm like, this is just not good.
I'm gonna try to check it out. We're gonna check out more Clipped and get on that too, because we talked about it. But at least I am. Trey's not. Trey's out. I'm gonna watch a little bit of Clip. But yeah, you can definitely check out. I think the Willie Mays documentary is still on Max. That's a great watch as well. So definitely something to look forward to if you haven't seen it. But I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Again, give us a listen. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're on all the platforms. We're going to drop some shorts for you guys as well. We got an exciting summer. I know there's not a lot of sports, but we got a lot of topics that we don't normally get to handle, sports and non-sports. So stay tuned for that as well. And on the way out, of course, I will swing it to Trey.
Again, like you said, thank you so much for joining us today. Please check us out. We're on all the major platforms. But until next week, peace.